Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome back to the Daily Lessons podcast. This is going to be episode number 50, the big 50. All right. So today we're going to be talking about choices and the paradox of choice. So this is a term that was coined somewhere back by some psychologist. I really just don't even remember what his name is, and I don't have it in the notes that I have with me either. But essentially, what it is that the more choices that a population actually has or individual has, the more anxiety that we're going to feel and the more indecisive we're actually going to be. Now, you've experienced this for sure, okay? You ever scroll through Netflix and you feel like you have absolutely nothing to watch, even though there's a whole catalog of basically like 10,000 movies and shows? I don't even know how big Netflix's catalog is, but I'm telling you, if you were to watch like 24 hours a day, I doubt that you could finish the entire Netflix catalog. But we still think that we don't have anything to watch. You ever go on Uber Eats and you're trying to decide like, oh, where should I go eat today? Or where should I order from today? Even like when talking to friends, you're like, oh man, there's not any good food. But in reality, if you live in like any type of major city, you have so many choices. And there's probably a lot of good food as well. You get so overwhelmed with like all of this information that you're just not able to choose anything at all. And that's really just the paradox of choice. Like if as a consumer, you're at a grocery shop, and you have to pick between like chips of the same kind and you have more than like three choices, I feel like it just kind of debilitates you. At least that's what I always experience. I was like, should I get this one? Should I get that one? I don't know which one I actually want anymore. But if I were given the choice between, maybe I have to pick between two or maybe three at max, I could probably still make that choice much easier. One is way too little because people like feeling like they have a choice in the matter of who they're supporting. But, four or greater or even five or greater, I feel like it's way too many choices and people start to get debilitated and just become undecisive. That's why you'll probably see so many people just looking up in the grocery aisles and just staring because they can't make up their mind. Now, the thing is, this impacts us a lot more than just, us saying nothing to watch on Netflix or nothing to eat or nothing, or we can't even make our grocery decisions properly. What happens in my personal experience is that it debilitates us to the point where it kind of overflows in the rest of the it overflows in the rest of the areas in our life, right? So for example, at least for me, when I was deciding on what I actually want to do, what I want to talk about on this podcast, I always struggle with like making content for the episode because I'm like, oh man, like I should really talk about this, but oh man, like I should really talk about that as well. So I end up researching so many different things that I end up not deciding either. And I really struggle with that. Even when I was in college, I struggled so much to pick a major because I was getting so many different pieces of information and so many different options were available to me that I was like, oh my God, like I have an interest in computers, but I also am interested in math. I'm also interested in English and history. What should I do? And I felt so powerless. I was like, oh man, I want to do all of these things, but I really can't do anything. And that literally caused me to do nothing, right? And that's the other thing that people always struggle with as well. So because we have all of these choices in front of us, we want to pick every single one of them. And obviously this is something that we cannot do, and this is something that I also talked about in a previous episode of mine. I think it was episode number 3. So you're probably gonna have to go back, or I'm probably just gonna put it somewhere up top on this video as well. And if you're still watching, make sure to hit that subscribe button, of course. But essentially, what happens is that whenever we have a plethora of decisions or a plethora of choices to make and we are forced to pick one, we always feel this type of FOMO of the other choices. And that's why we're so easily swayed to something else even after we've picked it. So for example, I picked this podcast, right? Now, in my head right now, while I record this podcast, it's like, okay, I made the active decision to pursue this podcast, but I really also want to play video games, and I really want to just to do that as well. So I have this fear of actively missing out on like the new game that I just bought. I'm just using it as an example, right? And because of that, we feel crippled, of course. So it's not just before we make the decision, it's also after we make the decision as well. And we never like get in to the water like super deep. We're just like testing out the waters essentially. We never just dive right in. And I feel like that's a huge problem, because if you're just testing out the waters the entire time, you're probably never going to get good at anything. You're probably never going to be putting in as much time to become good at it, and also to actually gain the results from it either, right? So yeah, and look, here's the thing, right? All of these things, they come from a place of privilege, and I want you to also understand that if you have all these choices in your life, you're a privileged person. So make sure that you're always acknowledging your privilege, and you're appreciative of the life that you're given and the choices that you have in front of you, okay? Now, here is my advice. This is kind of what's worked for me. It might not work for you, and that's completely fine. Every person is different. You should find out whatever works for you, and you should stick with that. If you're feeling anxiety, or if you're feeling kind of just like debilitated or just crippled from all these different choices that you have to make and all these decisions that you have, this is what I would do, at least so you don't have any FOMO. I would pick one thing, and one thing at a time, and I would pursue that. And goes back to like one of the previous episodes that I released, episode number 3, like I mentioned in this podcast. But pick one thing, try it for a certain period of time. I would recommend like 4 weeks, and then see if it works out for you. If not, then just leave it, and then try the next thing that you kind of were interested in. More than likely, you'll see that you probably just had shiny object syndrome, which is going to be another episode later. More than likely, you'll see that you had shiny object syndrome, and you were kind of just attracted to the other thing just because you didn't want to pursue the thing that you're currently doing, because it was getting grueling. You weren't getting the dopamine hits from it. And that happens. That's a real thing in human psychology as well. At least it is for me. I'm sure that there's a lot of experts out there that actually say that it is a real phenomenon as well. And be laser focused with your decisions, and just be decisive. Go into the grocery store and, tell yourself like, hey, this is the chocolate that I want. I'm not even going to look at anything else, and grab it and get going. Don't even bother and, waste your time, waste like 5 minutes or 10 minutes of your life, whatever. It's a chocolate bar. It doesn't matter. And if you want advice about how to pick a Netflix show, I'm really sorry. I'm not going to be able to do that for you, because I'm still struggling on what I want to watch while I eat, or, any TV show. That's why I just actively avoid it. I actively avoid just watching TV just in general, just because of that, because I can never decide. I spend more time scrolling than I do actually watching the show or the movie that I want. And I absolutely hate it when I pick something to watch and it ends up being complete dog shit. But either way, sorry for the rant at the end. Anyways, guys, this was episode number 50 of the podcast. Thank you guys so much for tuning in today. I really appreciate it, man. Make sure to hit that like button as well. Make sure to hit that subscribe button for me as well. It doesn't cost you that much. It costs you 2 seconds of your time, but it means the world to me, and I would really appreciate it. Thank you guys. I'll take care, guys. This is Yusha signing out.